Welcome to Growthcast, insights for B2B leaders, where we uncover the strategies, challenges, and AI tools future leaders are using. Today we have Nigel. Nice to have you on today.
Great to be here. Really appreciate it,
Pleasure.
Alex.
Nice, absolute pleasure. For our audience's context, do you mind doing a brief introduction around yourself and what do you do?
Okay, no, brilliant. Well, I spent the last 25 years, I'm showing my age here, a few grey hairs, in technology, sales and marketing background. Um, Something I've been involved with for most of that time is startups, scale-ups, all technology focused. Been doing SaaS-based technology since the phrase was even coined, and in more recent years, getting more involved in marketplaces and AI-driven technology as well. I love the startup scale-up world. I love international expansion, the nuances of working with different cultures around the world. I find that a great challenge and something I really like the process of startups and scale-ups because it encompasses that sort of entrepreneurialism, the design, the build, execute, scale, repeat. I know it sounds a logical five steps, but I really enjoy that process. I'm a generalist when it comes to different vertical markets. I worked in many different sectors over the years. And been through the corporate world, experienced that, and then, as I say, been working with a number of startups and scale ups. Been through one IPO very early, late 90s, again, showing my age, which was a great experience in the mobility space. Been through three or four other exits during my work career as an executive. I've had an exit of my own, and part of venture building, the tough side of it is sometimes we have failures. So, I was a victim, unfortunately, of COVID, where I was running as a late co-founder in a travel tech business, which was later destroyed, to be honest, to be brutal, by COVID. It was in the corporate managed travel space. So, to be frank, I've seen, I like to put it, the good, the bad, and even the ugly of venture building. So, and that sort of leads to me to my what I'm doing now and what I'm doing in the future.
Really appreciate that response. So, given that, tell me a bit more about now what you're doing, the mission of the company, and where you're trying to take it to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess as a segue, my background, the scars and the experiences over the years, I try to encapsulate that. And rather than me stepping back into the corporate world or into another sort of executive role, for me, I love that again, that journey of the entrepreneurialism. So how can I share some wisdom with others in getting to that point? So because I feel venture building is broken, and not entirely, but I would say in the large majorities of cases, and and it's very transactional. It's very it lacks human centric approach to things. It lacks empathy in the understanding of that journey. And for me, the proportional risk between investor and founders is not right. And what I mean by that is most people and investors will say, well, look, I'm risking my money. But a founder is risking their credibility. They're risking their livelihood because they're bootstrapping something. They've made huge sacrifices, and it's time, effort, sometimes blood, sweat, and tears. And if you're dealing with investors that haven't been through that journey or had that empathy, it's really difficult. So because because of that and some of the other experience I've had, what I decided to do is rather than I've been building a portfolio approach over the last sort of 7 or 8 years since COVID, and that's great. And it's been able for me to work with a number of great founders, tech companies, and investors, and work with them on project base. But that's not a scalable and repeatable remodel for me. And so I want to practice what I preach. So what I decided to do, this is something that's been in the making, and it's a passion for me, and it's heart on sleeve for the last 10 years. and I basically launched a company called Venture and Prosper. Hopefully, the name kind of resonates strongly, and people can visit the website or whatever at a later date. But there's a story there and an essence behind it, which I think would resonate not just with founders. How do we create a founder-friendly, human-centric approach to venture building? And what we've actually done is Venture and Prosper is a team of 15 plus like-minded individuals. We're all ex-founders, all ex-executives that have been through the motions of venture building with mixed different experiences. We're a global team, so we have a global footprint. And we've built out a number of services that founders need on that journey. So depending how mature your business is, it could be a startup, more of a mature post sort of pre-seed, or into more the post-seed into Series A, maybe into Series B in that scale-up mode. We built out a number of services that, and then frankly, a lot of them are services which we have lots of competition, but we don't believe someone's brought it together in an end-to-end. But the key areas that we're focused on is one, working with startups and scale-ups. To be honest, we're working more with scale-ups because they do have traction and their product market fit and post MVP typically. We're working with the investor community, but we're also working with some of the innovation labs out of the university. So some great innovation coming out, especially AI tools and AI agents that's going to be used. So those services range from market sizing, go-to-market strategy, ICP development, MVP development, right through to that whole go-to-market execution plan. But and then we also then help with the investor readiness. This is an area where a lot of people, you can get 50, ask 50 people, get 50 different opinions on what's the best type of deck, what's the best content, what's the best narrative. There is no perfect fit. It's a bit like a jobs CV. There is no perfect answer to that. But if you do your homework right, so we really home in on profiling the investors. So there's that emotional investor fit and that smart money fit. That's imperative in what we do. And then we actually help you actually raise the money. So again, but the beauty of this is because we're ex-founders, we've got the scars of the operational execution. We can also be great value to the investors as safe pairs of hands to help harmonize the execution between what the investor is looking for versus the founder. Excuse me, and we find that that psychologically works really, really well. And then obviously everyone wants growth and scale post funding, so that's another area where we help. Now, as I said, there's lots of competition in companies in the ecosystem of venture building that do all of those different areas, but are they being done in a human centric, empathetic way? That's one area. But then there's a few other words that don't seem to get used: accountability, ownership, deliverables, KPIs. You know, we will have skin in the game and we will be measured based on results. What I find, which is where I find venture building is really broken, is it's a bit like the analogy of, lots of carcasses being, nibbled at by the vultures. And frankly, there's a lot of middlemen and third parties out there that charge money with no guarantees, with no deliverables, very little KPI measurement. I think that is wrong. So that's an area where we feel that we're bringing something a bit different, all under one roof. Again, founder friendly, but also investor friendly, and we're harmonizing that piece. We've built up a number of clients now already and a very strong pipeline globally. Naturally, we're looking to grow and scale the business. And we've got a great talented team of really senior executives and former founders that are frankly passionate, hearts on sleeve in making this really, really work. And I have one phrase that, call me a bit soppy or almost, Christmas is coming here, but there is one mantra we're trying to stick to, which is one, how do we have a positive impact on one founder each and every day? And if we can do that, the smallest impact, we'd be happy people because the business will then work itself out and we can scale this out. So look, I won't harbor too much more there, but hope that's given you a really good feel of the essence, Alex, of why venture and prosper, how we're trying to do it, and what we're looking to achieve. And again, it is to change the status quo of venture building because it's on the whole broken, and frankly, very few people are calling that out. So I'm happy to call it out and be challenged on it. I'll be honest, Alex, and I know some people will challenge me on that. So hey, bring it on. I'm up for that. I like a healthy debate. Not afraid of that.
Absolutely, no, I really like this. Like you're bringing the humanity back into venture capital.
Totally. Totally.
I
I mean,
really
look,
like.
I mean, the humans behind it, investors have to remember that the founders are fathers, mothers, children. They've got maybe school fees, they've got their mortgage, all the essences behind it changes the risk factors. If you're a 22-year-old, single, entrepreneur, great, fantastic. But your risk factors are totally different to some of my age where you've got older children, big mortgage, you're in a different part of your
Yeah,
life. But in the investor community generally, again, I will caveat that I'm not spreading this as a casting the aspersions across everything in the investor community, but trust me, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and there's a fairer way of doing this. And let's just be human and not just treat people like numbers, spreadsheets, and a name. It's far more than that. And hopefully, when you look at some of our clients, and testimonials, that's the bit that comes out. And when we relaunched our new website, etc., the immediate thing was this is a refreshing approach, and you're saying it how people feel. So what you hear, what you say, is one thing in life and in business, but the most important thing in life and business is how do you make someone feel once you've interacted with them, whether it be on a phone call, email, social media, whatever. That piece is lost in the world. So that's the bit I'm trying to glue back. That's my little I guess challenge in life, and that's something that really motivates me, to be honest with you.
absolutely. I really like that. And you mentioned now you're looking, of course, to scale the business. You're also supporting other businesses to scale. What do you think are the top two things a business owner needs to be looking at when they're scaling and growing a business?
So we have to practice what we preach. So one of the things, if I sort of echo that back and say what we're doing is there's no point reinventing a wheel and don't feel you have to control everything. Partnerships are important and scaling. Now that can be people. So if you're looking for a more mature business, we're looking to scale. We're not reinventing the wheels by building operations and teams and creating huge payroll in different countries or different regions or different verticals. We're working with like-minded individuals that are already in those locations, and we're building a partnership approach that is more scalable, more flexible, but far lower costs of sale and lower costs of support. So I encourage people to do that. A lot of founders, when they go to the international scale side of things, they assume they have to set up entities, etc. Yes, that can help, but to me, you could look at some really, really smart ways of doing joint ventures. You have mutual skin in the game by doing that, or other types of partnership mechanisms. Don't feel you have to go and set up an operation and have a company set up in that region. There's other ways to do it that are a lot smarter and wiser. And I think the other bit is be resourceful and creative. So we see lots of founders, and again, I have to practice what we preach. Spending a lot of money on what they think is the basics, and then they'll go out for equity funding to obviously spend money to scale the business. But there are lots of other ways to raise money. There's R&D tax credits. There are grants, innovation grants, AI grants is a big thing right now. You've got co-innovation. If you find a partner that can be a strategic investor or a joint venture, they can also be your go-to-market partner as well as an investor, or let's just say a complementary fit in the technology. So I just encourage people to look at all the options. I mean, even debt finance when you're a bit more mature as a business, more into the scale up, look at debt finance, lending facilities, even asset-based finance. There's so many different facilities out there. And I often talk to founders and they sort of started with the angel equity, which is the logical way. But my advice is don't necessarily feel it's got to be the same linear logical route that everyone else takes. There's other ways to do it, and I encourage people not to assume, oh, I started with an equity raise. I've got then my next raise and there on after. It's got to be equity. It doesn't have to be that way. So hopefully that just gives you a flavor. But there's many different components to scaling the business. I mean, there's commercial, there's the actual SaaS modeling, obviously is one area. There's the financial element. So what I tend to do is encourage people to build out swim lanes of you have your finance and funding and cash flow roadmap. You have your technology roadmap, productization roadmap, people, skills, etc. And you've got to basically manage those swim lanes, but knowing which swim lane has the knock-on effect to the other. That's an area where I find a lot of founders seem to miss. They run everything in silos and they don't look at it holistically. And I think that's another area. And I've got another example where some earlier stage companies have been SaaS or AI driven. They have cloud-based costs, and they'll say, "Hey, look, we'd love to work with your team. We'd like to expand. We'd like to, there's a synergy here. We love the essence of Venture and Prosper, but maybe we can't afford you at this moment in time." And that's a fair comment, but we have to be frugal because we've been in the shoes of the founder, so there's no point is contradicting our essence. So what we do is we often come in and do assessments. And one example was a company where they sort of lost control of their cloud spend. That's infrastructure, cloud usage, storage, etc., using Amazon and the typical scenarios. They were spending 27,000 pounds, oh, sorry, euros a month, and they were a relatively small company. That was a huge amount of their cash flow going out every month. They weren't managing it properly because the costs were spread over about 15 different line items
Oh, wow.
in their finances. So what actually we did is assess that, and we got that down to less than 7,000
Oh,
because they just
amazing.
hadn't proactively managed that process. So the great thing was that we got them a better service, reduced their cost. The spare cash flow was then injected into, frankly, the sexier bit of the business, which is growth and driving business and marketing. And so they used some of those funds to pay for our value. And now we're working with them many, many months later. So, and they still had a few thousand spare change, which they loved. And, again, the things that founders lose sleep over is I want growth and traction. How do I pay the bills? The cash flow. That's the things that keep founders awake at night. So because we've been in those shoes, we're very, I say, creative and resourceful. That's the two words, and that we can prove that by digging deep. And I've had a number of companies where, look, we're startup, we're just moving into that scale up phase, but we've got to be incredibly frugal still. And I say, I hear you. I totally get it. I've been in your shoes. But have you looked at all the alternatives? And now often you'll find that one founder, a solo founder, has a different dynamic in looking at these challenges than maybe having a co-founder. A tech founder versus a commercial or sales founder is very different. They're wired very differently. So we have to adapt our approach. It's almost like the psychology to what's attuned to the affinity of those individuals. And that's a really important area. So I guess my takeaway is one doesn't fit all. That's from an investor perspective, a founder perspective, And I think this is the frustration I find for I say this venture building. It seems to be have this sort of sequential process you must go through. I disagree. And it's not just this traditional pre-seed, seed, A, B, C. In reality, it doesn't work that way. And there's all these different bridges of ups and downs. And it's like a roller coaster ride that sits between those. I think that is just fundamentally wrong. It's not reality of how things work. That's what I'm encouraging the investor community to say, hey, look, let's get a bit more real. One process does not fit all. And I've challenged many founders on this, but in particular, different investors. And, they say, oh, no, it's a tried and tested formula. This works. Or, yes, we're flexible. Yes, it's one doesn't fit all. But actually, in practice, it sort of goes back into the same rhythm. And let's change the rhythm. Why not? Let's be a bit disruptive, but in a fair way. That's all I'm asking for is let's just treat everyone fairly and share the success. We're not asking for a lot here, to be honest.
Absolutely. I love that. And to round off the podcast, what would be one piece of advice you would give to a business owner in the future?
I would absolutely ask the investor, have they been a founder? One question. And take and the how they respond and how quickly is a big sign for are they the right investor? Are they going to be on the journey? I would say, secondly, what value are you going to bring beyond your injection of cash? That's imperative. And then really dig into the motivational alignment of what's their portfolio? What have they invested in to date? Where's the success? What really makes them tick? What excites them? Not just
Yeah,
making money sometimes. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. We all have to monetize our value and time. I have to do the same, but there's a smarter, friendlier, more human-centric way of doing it. And I think if you press hard on those, don't be afraid, I would say. I mean, not saying founders should be afraid, but if you're a first-time founder and you've not really challenged this stuff, all the narrative you'll hear is, I'm presenting to the investor. Well, no, the investor is being interviewed by you as well, equally. And we've got to change that. So hopefully those three or four little areas I think is really imperative to get off to a good start. It sets the precedent. The rest is more, binary processes there on after. But if you start there, it sets the scene perfectly for the next stage.
absolutely. I love that. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on as a guest today. Hopefully, we can have you on as a part two in the near future once you've invested
Absolutely.
in a few more companies and have some new learnings. But again, thank you so
No,
much for being on Growthcast today and looking
no,
forward to the
thanks, Alex. Really appreciate the time and say very passionate about this disrupting or changing the status quo of venture building. And I'd love to share insights or a bit of friendly challenges to some of my comments and observations. And would love to work with more founders, more investors, and let's just get a joint win for everyone. It should be easier. It should be easier.
Definitely, definitely. And for the
Okay.
audience, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks
Thank you.
again. Thanks again, Alex. Cheers. Have a great day. Cheers now.